All right, ready to jump back into the world of Harry Potter.
Always.
Today we're taking a deep dive into Chapter 6 of The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Talons and tea leaves.
That's the one. Now, we've got the text here, of course.
And a couple of study guides to help us out.
Yeah, so we can really answer some of those common chapter questions and get a good understanding of what's going on.
Some really interesting stuff in this chapter.
There is a spooky prophecy.
Oh, yeah, can't forget that.
And we finally meet the hippogriff.
Half horse, half eagle.
All attitude. But first, let's set the scene. Everyone's arrived at Hogwarts.
Right. Breakfast in the Great Hall.
And Harry, Ron, and Hermione notice that Malfoy is acting a little strange.
Yeah, usually he's all boastful.
Total.
But this time, he's kind of subdued, quiet.
And it all comes back to that encounter with the Dementors on the train.
Those Dementors, they're really something else.
For those who need a little refresher, remind us what Dementors are all about.
So they guard Azkaban, the wizard prison.
Right, high security.
Yeah, and they're these creepy creatures that basically suck all the happiness out of you.
Leaving behind like pure despair.
Exactly.
Oh.
So you can imagine Malfoy's fear is totally justified.
Oh, absolutely. It really sets a darker tone for this whole chapter, I think.
I agree. Things are about to get interesting.
Definitely. So breakfast is over, and it's time for class.
What's on the schedule?
Divination. With, you guessed it, Professor Trelawney.
Now, how is she described again?
Oh, she's quite the character.
Very dramatic.
Yeah, like a large, glittering insect, I think the book says.
And that classroom of hers is decked out like a fortune teller's tent.
Very theatrical, right?
Totally. She really believes in this whole idea of divination being like the most difficult of all magical arts.
Requiring a special sight and all that.
Right. But not everyone buys into it.
And that's what one of our study guides points out.
Exactly. Professor McGonagall, she's not convinced at all.
She seems to think it's more of an art than a science.
Yeah, calling it woolly and imprecise, I think.
And then there's that whole thing with the Grim.
Oh, yeah, the Grim.
Trelawney sees this shadowy dog shape in Harry's teacup.
And declares it an omen of death.
Heavy stuff.
Right. But is it really true?
That's the question, isn't it? The study guides offer a few different perspectives on the Grim.
Yeah, some wizards believe it directly causes death, like through fear.
Like Ron, he's terrified after seeing it.
Exactly. Remember he tells Harry about his Uncle Bilious.
Died shortly after seeing the Grim, right?
Yeah. But then you have Hermione.
Always the voice of reason.
She has a different take.
She thinks it's more about the fear itself.
Yeah, like people see the Grim, they panic, and somehow that fear makes it a reality.
So what do you think? Cause or symptom?
Good question. Definitely something to think about.
All right, well, let's move on from the spooky prophecies.
To something a bit more hands-on.
That's right. It's time for Hagrid's first class as Care of Magical Creatures teacher.
And he's not holding back.
Nope, he's brought out the hippogriff.
Was majestic creatures.
Half horse, half eagle, and apparently very sensitive about manners.
Hagrid really emphasizes the etiquette.
Oh, absolutely. You have to maintain eye contact. You have to bow to show respect.
And wait for the hippogriff to bow back.
Very important. And only then can you think about touching them.
It's all about earning their trust.
And Harry, of course, being Harry, he totally gets it right.
Approaches Buckbeak with that calm demeanor.
And earns himself a fantastic ride.
It really shows Harry's bravery and that connection he has with magical creatures.
Totally. But unfortunately, not everyone follows Hagrid's instructions so carefully.
Oh no, who are we talking about?
Malfoy, of course.
Oh, Malfoy.
Arrogant as ever.
What does he do?
Ignores Hagrid's warnings and insults Buckbeak.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
It isn't. And our study guides offer some insight into why this is such a big deal.
What do they say?
Well, Malfoy calls Buckbeak a flea-bitten old nag.
Oh, wow.
Which, to a hippogriff...
That's a huge insult.
It is. It shows just how little respect Malfoy has for these creatures.
He sees them as beneath him.
Like they're just beasts to be controlled.
And of course, this disregard for Hagrid's instructions leads to Buckbeak reacting
defensively.
And that's where we'll leave things for now.
We've got a spooky prophecy, a daring lesson, and now a hippogriff encounter gone wrong.
Things are about to get really interesting.
Be sure to join us for part 2 of this deep dive to see what happens next.
Can't wait.
Welcome back. So last time, we left off with Buckbeak reacting to Malfoy's insult.
And things escalate pretty quickly from there.
The whole class erupts.
Chaos everywhere.
Malfoy's clutching his arm, wailing like he's dying.
Oh, I bet.
Pansy Parkinson, she's in tears. And the Slytherins are all blaming Hagrid.
Demanding he gets fired, probably.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a stark contrast to those quiet moments before.
Then Harry successfully approached Buckbeak.
Right. Everyone was so amazed.
It really shows how fear and prejudice can change everything in an instant.
You're so right. And one of the study guides even points out that Malfoy's reaction, like his over-the-top reaction, it plays right into those prejudices people already have against Hagrid.
Exactly. Because he's a half-giant, people are already wary of him.
They associate him with danger, with beasts.
Even though he's one of the kindest people at Hogwarts.
It's so unfair. Hagrid is just devastated.
He blames himself.
He keeps saying he should have started with a less intimidating creature.
Like flobberworms.
Yeah, those harmless little slug things.
But one of our study guides suggests there's a deeper meaning behind that comment about flobberworm.
Oh, interesting. What do they say?
Well, they suggest that choosing hippogriffs, especially those proud and easily offended ones, it was a deliberate act of courage on Hagrid's part.
Really?
How so?
Think about it. It would have been so much easier to play it safe,
Stick with the flobberworms, avoid any potential trouble.
Exactly. But Hagrid, he wanted to share something extraordinary.
You wanted to push boundaries.
And risk that potential backlash to inspire his students.
I never thought of it that way.
But it makes his anguish even more heartbreaking, right? He just wanted to share his passion. And now he's worried about losing his job.
It shows how much he cares about his students, about the creatures.
Thankfully, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they come to his rescue.
They know Malfoy provoked Buckbeak.
They promise to tell Dumbledore the truth.
Their loyalty to Hagrid is just unwavering.
They could have stayed out of it.
But they choose to stand by him.
Even if it means going against the grain.
Which, speaking of, they visit Hagrid after dinner, even though he told them not to.
He warned them about the dangers outside, but they still go.
To check on him, it shows how much they care.
But their visit takes a bit of a turn when Hagrid remembers Sirius Black.
And he explodes at Harry.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock, right? After everything that's just happened.
It reminds us that there's a real threat looming over everything.
Sirius Black, the escaped prisoner.
Even something as simple as visiting a friend can be dangerous in this world.
And here's where things get even more interesting.
Oh, tell me more.
One study guide suggests that Hagrid forbidding them from visiting after dark. It might not just be about their safety.
What else could it be about?
They propose that Hagrid is also trying to protect himself.
How so?
He's already under scrutiny because of Buckbeak, right?
Right.
So if he's seen with Harry, who's Sirius Black's supposed target.
It could make things worse for him.
Exactly. It's a brave choice, putting Harry's well-being above his own need for company.
It adds another layer to Hagrid's character.
He's not just this bumbling giant.
He's complex, with hidden depths.
And a fierce loyalty to those he cares about. All right, so we've covered divination, we've explored the world of hippogriffs, and now it's time to talk about something a little less, grand.
I know what you mean.
Like, remember how Hagrid wished he'd just stuck with flobberworms?
After the whole Buckbeak incident,
Yeah, it seems like just a throwaway line, but the study guide suggests there's something more to it.
they do. And it makes you think, right?
It does. So flobberworms, for those who need a reminder,
They're basically harmless, kind of slug-like creatures.
the opposite of a hippogriff, really.
Totally. Safe, boring,
But why is that significant?
Well, choosing flobberworms would have been the easy way out for Hagrid.
I see you mean.
No risk, no conflict, no criticism.
Right, he could have just avoided all the trouble that came with Buckbeak.
Exactly. But Hagrid chose to go with something more challenging.
More extraordinary.
He wanted to push boundaries, inspire his students, even if it meant facing consequences.
So it was a deliberate act of courage, choosing hippogriffs over flobberworms.
I think so, yeah. It would have been so much easier to just play it safe.
To stay in his comfort zone.
But he didn't. And that reminds me of the theme we see throughout Harry Potter.
What's up?
Facing your fears, standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult.
It's a powerful message. And it's amazing how even something as small as a flobberworm can bring that out.
Right. It's all about those little details.
And speaking of details, let's go back to Hagrid telling Harry, Ron, and Hermione not to visit him after dark.
After the Buckbeak incident.
Yeah, one study guide suggests it might not have been just about their safety.
Oh, really? That's interesting. What do they say?
They think Hagrid might have been trying to protect himself, too.
Protect himself. How so?
Well, he was already under scrutiny because of Buckbeak.
Right.
And being seen with Harry, who Sirius Black was supposedly after.
It could have made things worse for him.
Exactly. So he was willing to put Harry's well-being above his own desire for company.
That's really brave.
It really shows the depth of his character.
He's more than just a half-giant, more than just a gamekeeper.
He's a complex character, capable of great courage and loyalty.
And I think that's a really important takeaway from this whole chapter.
What do you mean?
Pay attention to the details, even the small ones, like a mention of flobberworms or a simple instruction.
They can reveal so much about a character.
Their motivations, their fears, their strengths.
It's amazing how much depth and meaning can be packed into a single chapter.
It's what makes Harry Potter so captivating, I think.
It's a story that keeps on giving.
Even after all these years.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Talons and Tea Leaves.
It's been a wild ride, from spooky prophecies to daring hippogriff encounters.
And maybe, just maybe, this deep dive will inspire you to take a closer look at your own favorite stories.
To discover those hidden depths, those subtle details that make them so magical.
You never know what you might find.
Until next time.
Happy reading.